right. We're off to a great start this morning. We have a new book. Does everyone know what we're doing? At least I know what I'm doing, sort of. We've got awesome. So excited to start this newest book study with you, and I feel like we need to jump right in. We've got more people coming, which is so exciting. So yeah, we've got the 16 undeniable laws of communication. Apply them and make the most of your message. I'm so thrilled and so glad that we decided to do this book. So we're going to start right away with the introduction. Everyone has a message. And I think I'm just getting myself sorted here. I think what is really important to start this out with is the quote from page 12 is communication is the connective tissue between humans, holding the potential to bring us together, create shared understanding, align on and execute initiatives, and so much more. At the end of the day, communication is the vehicle for transformation.
And so my message on that is, if we're not able to communicate, we have no business. Period.
Absolutely.
Zero.
So I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to ask the first question. Well, I mean, I guess first we can say, I do love on page 13 where he does outline this. And I think he does this fairly well in a lot of his books where the laws can be learned. So if you are not a great communicator, if you have a hard time connecting with people, you can learn how to do that. And that's the best news ever. This is not like, hey, if you could just please take the personal quiz. And if you are like below a 3 on communication, just get out of the boat. Like you're done. No communicating for you. No, you can learn, right? The laws can be learned. The laws can stand alone. They carry consequences with them. They're timeless. And the laws are foundation of good communication. So, Sherry, what's our first question? Describe a time.
The first question is, the most effective message is the one you live. So, are you aligned? So, are you living what you're saying? And does your social media posts, stories, all of it, does it align with who you are? So I just want you to think about that, because it's one of the things I've been thinking about and realized that my Instagram was so narrow that it wasn't really reflecting the depth, the complexity, the authenticity. It's not that it was not right or real, but it wasn't reflecting the whole image. It was like it was just getting a little slice. So, are you reflecting? And just as you're thinking about that, I want you to think about, have you recently or anytime heard someone speak, and because of who you thought they were, your perception, have you dismissed their message?
Now, let me just insert into there. It could be who you thought they were. It could be a reputation that they have built, like totally valid, right? Can you think of a time? I mean, I'm sure we can all say, yeah, I totally have done that. But can you actually think of a time? Amy, do you have a time?
Yes. Okay. So then am I here now? Okay. Actually just yesterday, and I'm going to pick Crystal Cowell's post. When I read Crystal Cowell's post with no picture, I was like, wait, what? Okay, pause and think about what's been happening only in the last 3 or 4 months. Because my history with following Crystal Cowell is years. In fact, I've met her. So it was like that shift on, wait a second. I did read in the last few months she's been traveling. I knew she had had severe back issues. I knew there was lots going on, but I wasn't following really close on what that meant on the diversion train. So when I read hers, I was like, that message is quite different than what I would have expected, except it's still not out of character. So it still hits some of those same points on authenticity, and because of all of that history, I was like, her message is credible. Even though it was quite shocking to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Like, I will give a blanket for example, and we're just going to leave the blanket example. We're not going to go down the rabbit hole. Can I get everyone to promise me we're not going to go down the rabbit hole? We happen to live on the other side of the country from where our government is, and sometimes our government makes comments about things that they don't know anything about, like farming or public transportation or whatever, right? And so when somebody tells people in Saskatchewan to take the bus to where they need to go, after that, you're just like, do you realize we don't have and can't get, like, there's no, I'm sorry, what, right? Or, you're having to suck through the paper straws, but you have to take off the plastic wrapper, and you're like, who orchestrated this? I feel like you're lacking credibility with me now. I don't feel as though I'm going to listen to you for environmental things. Right? Right. Okay. No rabbit trail necessary. I think we're all on the same page there. So there's another, for instance. So I love how Sherry mentioned Instagram and taking a look, the narrow view, because what Sharon, you said it, Janelle, I thought it. Thank you. You're welcome. We're not even going to go to the plastic bags. Oh, heavens. Anyway, we're dangerously going to tiptoe into something that is really really popular right now in Plexus, and it's the concept of nix the niche. Amber Miller did a great presentation about nixing the niche. And I do want to welcome you all into that sphere, because I think for a really long time, okay, the comment section is really, really resisting not going down the rabbit hole. Amy's like, please let me go. Anyway, I feel like for a really long time, a lot of people were paralyzed with this whole niching thing. And so when they heard that they could nix the niche, they were like, whoa, right? It gave people permission to show up again, which is great, because yes, like we can nix the niche, but I'm actually going to push back on that a little bit. Hold on, we're not hearing you yet. Okay, go.
I want to explain why.
There.
I listened to Sheila Cron's live in Team Awesome about nixing the niche, which I thought was really nice and great. But because I'm somebody who's just recently trying to go gluten-free, where am I going to go? I'm going to Sheila Cron.
Yeah.
She has posted about it so continuously, and I'm trying to figure out how to express that. I appreciate that she used that as her niche. So now I know to go to her. She doesn't post about it all the time, but because she still posts about it regularly enough, I know where to go. I can look for different things. I can find what I'm looking for my support. She still has a niche. So in our group, knowing our strengths, our talents, some of those things that are totally everyday normal are a niche. So a niche was explained as pick your top 3 passions or knowledge base and post only those things.
So the concept of nix the niche is forget about being so focused on those things, just be who you are, except that you need to know who you are.
You need to know who you are.
You need to know who you are.
You have people following you because you've done some of that. If you've never done any of that, maybe you actually want to think about what is really strong and easy for you. what are you fantastic? Exactly. Janelle and her lymphedema.
Yeah.
If anyone is going to
Impression
ask me,
garments, we know who to talk to. She's the girl. And I'm like, hey, keep going louder because there's lots of people.
yeah.
Right?
So still posting about that is your strength.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So we're going to keep going because guys, we're never going to get there. We are never going to get there. We have so many good thoughts, but this book, guys, we're in deep. We got to keep going. So, hey, question. So the idea of being a real communicator, right? Like being transparent, that is that first law is that you have to be transparent. What apprehensions do you have potentially about being transparent? What would keep you from that transparency? By the way, sorry, Linda, you're here. When does the party start? Thanks for being here. Yeah, it's okay. Don't answer me. I just had a moment where I was like, I was thinking about Linda being transparent with this weekend and giving the phone to some grandkids. And I'm like, but you're here. Oh, it's at 3. Okay. Well, I'm going to stay tuned. I'm going to stay tuned. So Linda's transparency, she is not going to be afraid. She's going to get some people to help her with tools for being transparent. What could potentially hold you back from being transparent? Sorry, my dog was so nicely asking to leave.
I agree, Chelsea. Be the go-to girl for whatever you're passionate about. But the importance of mixing the niche is that you need to post about other things as well.
Yes.
The one theme needs to keep coming back: consistency.
Absolutely.
It is the core. And that's part of transparency. If you're talking about one thing this week, something else next week, and you never come back to this plan,
Yeah.
nobody knows why they would talk to you.
Amy says perception is one of your apprehensions about being a real communicator, being authentic.
About being transparent.
Yeah.
You said we were on transparency. So perception of what transparency is internally and what you perceive when other people, and transparency is also like that oversharing comment, authentic, and sharing to the degree for the right audience. Because if you overshare to the wrong audience, your transparency is not appropriate, and your the other people's perception of you gets shifted.
I agree with Sharon, that fear of being misunderstood.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this like a couple of years ago, about that fear of being misunderstood, or that was bouncing around somewhere. And it was just sort of like that, you know, we can be afraid that someone won't understand our entire intentions, right? Like, but oftentimes someone else's perception of us has less to do with us and more to do with where they're sitting. But that it's totally a valid thing.
For me, and I'll just lay it right out there, it's ego. And it's ego because I want to be viewed in a certain way, and yet I fear that transparency might mean I show people something different.
And it's interesting because I also was the same, Sherry, because I remember, like, especially when it came to, like, you know, my faith and trying to encourage people, I thought encouraging people was like always, you know, being essentially, I placed myself on a pedestal for everyone.
Yeah.
And everyone felt incredibly discouraged. And maybe they looked up to me, but that's about as far as it went.
Yeah.
But they felt lower, and they didn't feel encouraged,
Yeah,
and they didn't feel connection, and they didn't feel like they could be their authentic self around me. They didn't feel like, and so And a lot of it was also my lack of self-awareness about even myself. It was like I had built up this image of who I wanted to be seen as, and I believed myself to be that. And it was almost like you couldn't even correct me on things that I needed to work on because I knew already who I was supposed to be, but I was just in the process. Anyways, whatever. But the whole thing with transparency is I found the more like transparency and vulnerability in the right way, done the right way, has built, has helped others feel like they can trust me and that they can confide in me and they can be their authentic self, which I love, but also I know that I trust people who are authentic, even if I don't like them. If you know what I mean.
Great awareness, Chelsea.
Because if you have a friend who says it like it is, you know they're you know what I'm talking about. When they're like, yeah, I don't like that. And they're just very like honest and transparent. And there's a jerk way to go about it and there's a nice way to go about it. But like you feel like if this person, anyways, not going to go down that. But I don't trust people who are not vulnerable. And I do not trust people who are not authentic and who are not transparent. I really don't trust them. And it's not like I'm going to treat them like an awful person, but I don't connect with them. Like you try to, press in a little bit more and you're just kind of like, hey, would like to get to know you. But they're just keeping everyone at an arm's distance because they're like, I don't want anyone to see what's really inside. And then you're like, what's really inside? And then you're more like, okay, what's actually in there? And then you can form that's where all sorts of assumptions can come from, is when someone is not transparent.
And then the stories in our head create our own reality, right or wrong.
Oh my gosh. And then it's just a wildfire. It's not a good time.
It's a wildfire. Oh, and yes, and we are going to have to keep moving because the conversation's fabulous, and I'd love to have time for everyone to participate. We have a lot of topics to go through. His second one on this first chapter, because we're doing 2 chapters, on the qualities is consistency. I think we've talked a little bit about consistency and what you say consistently over time to add credibility. We talked about that when we were talking about the whole niche piece. So I'm just going to go on to the being a good example. So what lesson are you living out now that you could teach others?
I think that would be a really good one to like write down and spend some time journaling on as we continue.
So I think Janelle actually had a good one that she mentioned to me yesterday. Are you willing to share that one?
I can't remember which one that was. Oh, yes. No, I remember. So, I had been living with this wonderful little friend that I discovered when my son was 6 weeks old. I had a lipoma that was diagnosed, and it was about that large on my groin. You're welcome. And I went into the doctor, and he said, that's what it is. We shuffled out of the office, didn't really think much of it. Time progressed. It started growing. I kind of felt like maybe it wasn't what he said it was. And, when you hear that there's just a fat cell that's going to keep growing, you're kind of like, that sounds gross. Like nobody else has that. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of this from anybody else. Like that. And so I kind of kept this thing, and it felt like a dirty little secret. It felt like I felt shame. I felt like a whole bunch of things around it because it wasn't talked about, right? And so in the last 2 years, it's grown exponentially. again. And so then you start to wonder, well, is it something different? Is it a bigger deal? Is this something? And so you start to make up these stories in your head, but yet still in the dark, because you're not turning on the light by going to a doctor, getting imaging, or talking about it with people. Although I did watch a lot of Dr. Pimple Popper videos and I understood how it was going to come out. You're welcome. But I mentioned it to a good friend of mine a couple of years ago, just kind of broached it. She goes, oh yeah, my son has that. I'm like, what? And she's like, oh yeah, we thought it was a hernia, but it's right here. It's kind of gross. You can poke it in and it comes back out again. And it's just this fatty tissue thing. And I was like, what? Right? And so I put it up on my stories the other day thinking, you know what? It's about time that we start to shed some light on some of these things, because I don't want people to think that they're alone. Like if they've got something like this and they need to get it checked out, or they're feeling like it's gross and a dirty little secret, right? So I had somebody right away be like, yeah, I had one of those under my butt cheek. I had to get it and I thought, what a terrible thing to have place to have stitches. But more and more people started to go, oh yeah, I had one. Oh yeah, I had one of those. Oh, that's, whatever. And it's just that concept of whatever we bring to light no longer has the authority over you to make you feel anything, right? And we are giving that authority to something by keeping ourselves in the dark. Because did a fat cell really have the authority to create scarcity and fear and shame? No. I gave the authority to that silly little thing. And then as it progressed, there we go. So I started talking about it, even though it's kind of gross, but I don't know, not showing pictures at all, but if you want to know.
Yeah. So I guess what we're thinking is write down, and in the interest of transparency, I think I got one of those on the butt cheek part, Janelle. So
You're welcome.
Moving on.
Talked about this. Go get things checked. I know a guy. I know a guy. He's great. Anyway, but also, you know what, you guys, here's the other piece too. If we don't choose to walk into places that, to turn on the light and walk into those places, sometimes those journeys create healing. Sharon and I were just talking about this the other day. I had to go to a hospital where I've had a lot of medical trauma, anxiety, whatever. And I walked down some hallways and I got onto a floor that I'd spent a lot of time on, whatever. If I had never decided to turn on the light on this thing, even for myself, I wouldn't have been gifted the opportunity to walk down those halls and be like, oh, this is not where I am anymore. I accidentally pressed the fifth floor instead of the second. That was where I stayed for weeks and weeks. And I walked out of the elevator and I went, I don't belong here. I can leave now. And I did. And I had no anxiety about it. But it was a release because I haven't been there since I had those issues. So turning on the light on things, not just for your audience, is really healing. And sometimes we don't realize the healing that can come when we choose to walk through those places. Anyway, transparency. You should think about the lesson you're living out now that you can teach others for yourself. Where do we want to go? Sherry and I are like, let's keep going.
Well, we have to keep going, but the Be a Good Example one, I actually really, really like.
Yeah.
How many of you have actually listened or read that story in the book? Just before okay, maybe I better review it just for a second. So this is the story of a mom coming to let's just say a guru. Let me use that term, Mahatma Gandhi. And she wanted him to tell her son to stop eating sugar. And he said, come back to me in 3 days. So she's like, okay. So she came back. Puzzled, she said, why did I have to wait 3 days? Anyway, he said, stop eating sugar. The little boy, why did you have to wait? Couldn't you have told him that when I first came? And he said, no. He said, 3 days ago, I was also eating sugar. I couldn't say it until I'd lived it. So that's a piece of our authenticity and transparency on social media, is what we're saying, what we're living. Because if it's not, then our message is not going to have impact or influence. So sometimes, and I've done this, borrowed messaging from other people, and it's a great way to begin a message or to get ideas, but make sure you've read it through to know that it's what you're living, that you're congruent with what the message says. because the minute the message doesn't fit you, just like Amy mentioned earlier, the minute it doesn't fit you, you're kind of like, what are they saying again? I just saw them in the store. I saw that grocery cart. So that's a big piece of transparency, that example piece.
And that's not to say that you need to be perfect. Like, we work for a health and wellness business. I remember looking at different, it used to be Beachbody, and looking at it as an opportunity for doing an MLM like years ago. And and as in like glancing, because I wasn't interested. And I was like, I could never do that, because I could never, I don't ever want to be that person that is scrutinized for how they look on the outside, or how, you know, what if I fell off the wagon with my workouts? Like, then I wouldn't be able to be transparent with my, you know, whatever. But let's just be honest with this. Health and wellness, we can get sick. You can still have a cold and it's okay, right? What we do doesn't make us impenetrable.
Yeah. And if you want to see a journey of transparency, she's not on today, but I really want to say, go back and look at Jimmy's posts over the last year.
Yeah.
Look at Sharon's posts when she had a medical issue. Let's put it that way. Is that a nice way to put it, Sharon? But it's 100% authentic, 100% transparent, and still allows you to share the values of the company we work with.
I also think it also really encourages us to come full circle in what we believe, because in order to post well, you want to be transparent, but you don't want to be word vomiting gross stuff all over the place, right? Like if you're trying to be health and wellness and in the focus of growth and mindset and all of those things, it would be out of alignment to all of a sudden blast social media because your neighbor left their garbage out or something. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and so if we're talking about something, say you get a cold, just keeping it simple, you get a cold, you're probably going to say, hey, so this is what I'm doing to help because I'm sick. I'm going to make sure that I'm taking extra E's. I'm upping my vitamin C. I'm going to do some light stretching. I'm going to skip my major workout because I don't want to stress my body. I'm going to, like, these are the things to do, because people are already looking to you to, if they haven't already placed authority on your shoulders, they're looking to see if they can. Right. And so if you are being transparent in that, they're looking for evidence. Be the evidence. And if they decide that you are not the person that they want to place authority on, it's okay. You're just finding your people. Okay, so I think that we're gonna fast forward. I think, can we go to
Okay.
because
Can we just talk 1 minute on page 27, where it
Yes.
says, what's the difference between building a relationship and being relational?
Yes.
And this kind of tripped me up for a few minutes until I kind of was reading through it. And it's like, if we're one-on-one, there's many situations, messaging and so on, where we can develop an individual relationship, a friend or whatever. But if you're in a situation where you can't develop an individual relationship, then it's important to be relational, which means you're caring about your listeners, you're relating to their experiences. You're using phrases or describing ways of dealing or feeling things that they can relate to. So that's the difference between a relationship and being relational. Does that make sense for everybody?
Mm-hmm. And one thing I was going to say that really does speak to building relationship with people and to becoming relational is, just for an example, when you are speaking on social, I think this is interesting because it's something that I have said and I've had to stop saying it. But when you start a video, not saying, hey friends, or hey everyone, right? Because when you're talking to somebody on their phone, you're not talking to a crowd, you're talking to one person. And so when you remember that as you are turning that camera on, you're speaking, you're actually talking to one person, then all of a sudden it becomes that relational piece, right? They feel like you're talking to them instead of talking at them. Sharon said, when we are not transparent, it isolates us and feeds shame. We feel like fakes, and that gets in the way of messaging and relationships. Yes.
Absolutely.
So on page 29, he has a really great list of things. And it's all under that number 4, the reason level. People seek to listen because you add value to their lives. And that's kind of that production level if we're talking about, you know, the different the laws, right? Because we've Maxwelled a few times. But the quote from Simon Sinek, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And these keys that he has on 29 are so important. This, you know, you find myself, know myself, be myself, improve myself. This was interesting to me that this is listed here. Get over myself and give myself. And what I think is so interesting about these in our business is that between each rank that you go to, silver to gold, then gold to senior gold, and then senior gold to ruby, you almost have to go through this entire thing every time.
Every time.
Because then when you're a gold, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a gold, but look at all of these other people and they're golds too. How do I find myself in this? Like, what does this mean for me? What does being a gold look like? What does having a team and leading a team of this many people? Maybe the title doesn't matter, but I'm leading a team of over 20 people. Who am I? Right? So lots of thoughts. My goodness, we're clipping. We're clipping. Okay. So the great part, can we go to chapter 2 now?
I think we should do the set up the challenge.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Challenge for everybody.
I'm going to let you set up the challenge because then it makes me look not like a bad guy.
Oh, this is so bad.
Sherry's got a challenge for you.
Okay. So we have a challenge for everyone this week. This is part of communicating, right? So the challenge is a communicating challenge. The challenge is to talk to your audience forward facing on your social media. Now, if you have never spoken on a story, that's a great place to start. It goes away in 24 hours.
Exactly. It disappears. No evidence.
If you've spoken on your stories, I'd like you to up it a bit. But if you're somebody that's spoken on your stories once in a while, and maybe on your social media once in a while, go back and look, when was the last time that you actually did a forward-facing video? And I'm going to give you an example because this does really work. You may know, or if you've watched my Instagram, I don't know, but my Instagram over the last 8 months probably has been pretty focused on a very narrow niche and very informational focused. Not many forward-facing videos. You can look back and look.
They're great. They're lovely. They're wonderfully done.
Yeah. So Tuesday, was it Tuesday that I agreed to this?
Tuesday that you agreed to this?
Oh, I don't know. She was Janelle challenged us to say what our goals were. And I said, my goal was to create content.
Yeah.
Content.
That was Tuesday.
That was Tuesday. I did a forward-facing video on Instagram. Now, I went back and looked at my analytics in Reels. So this was a reel. I went back and looked at my analytics. I'd been getting somewhere between 50 and 200 views per reel. The last time I looked, that reel had 4,500 views.
What changed?
Do you want to connect with people?
So Sherry has actually, she's not just going to sit in this. She's now got a plan for her next one, which is really great. So great job. Great job, Sherry. And if you do show up on your stories often, then we would encourage you to do a live. Do a live on your Facebook or on Instagram or whatever. For me, I'm committing to showing up with my face every day for a week and talking about something. Because even yesterday, I realized all I did was take pictures away from me and I put text in, right? Fine, but far more connectedness with my face. There's your challenge. Okay.
I am not committing to daily, just so you know.
I'm being transparent here and saying what I am committing to. I'm not shooting on anyone.
Okay, we do need to keep going though.
We
So
do.
everybody choose your own track. We're into chapter 2 with
Yes.
22 minutes left.
Okay. Okay.
In
Sorry.
chapter 2, we're going to screen share because it's the law of observation.
So you're going to observe something.
And as you're observing, these are the things we want you to look for. So you might want to have notes ready. We want you to look for when did the speaker connect? So now we're thinking about timing. We're thinking about how did the speaker connect? So we're thinking about skill. How long did the speaker connect? So did you get focused and then kind of lose and then get focused and kind of lose? That's about greatness. How can I connect like that speaker? So what is it that you could do? That's about your potential. And then what are my connecting keys? So that's about your technique. So we're going to have you listen. It's going to be how long, Janelle?
But between 10 and 11 minutes. And then we're going to give ourselves some time to discuss afterwards. But this is in the Go app, just in case. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to just get out of here for a second. And I just want to show you guys. Let's see if we can do it this way. There's the Go app. We're going to go to library. We're going to go to Canada, English, business tools and training, convention breakout sessions, all the way to the bottom. Bottom left, this is Brittany and Christina, how to create business builders, and done. All right, now we're gonna just hope that this pulls up. I need to fast forward 10 seconds. There we go.
Hey everybody!
How's the
Hi
volume?
Nashville! Thank y'all for coming! What a
Any
packed
input?
house! Such an honor!
So fun.
Definitely an honor to be training with my bestie, Christina. Okay, so we know that you guys are all brained out for today, and we are tasked with the last hour of the day. And so what we want to do is start by asking you to stand up only if you have ever felt like you have no idea how to get somebody to work this business. Can you stand up if you've ever felt that way? Anybody? Anybody? Okay, so keep standing if you've ever been unsure of what to say to someone about this business. Okay, stay standing if you've ever worried what somebody's going to think of you if you did tell them about this amazing business opportunity. Okay, finally, continue to stand if you've ever worried if you have what it takes to help someone be successful at this business. Okay, so if you're sitting down, you're probably in the wrong room. Oh, that would be our husbands.
Husbands.
Y'all do belong here. Okay, y'all can stay. But for the rest of you, you can sit down, by the way. Thank you. The rest of you, we are very glad that you're here. I'm Brittany Howard.
I'm Christina Williams.
They're making me so emotional. Okay, so we are diamonds now. However, we have also been in those seats, looking up at a stage at diamonds who seem to have it together and have it figured out and don't have struggles and make it look easy. We know every single plexus emotion under the sun. We have felt all of the things. We have overcome the hurdles. There's nothing in here that any of you could be struggling with in your business that we have not also struggled with and figured out how to overcome. As a matter of fact, although I'm a diamond now, I was a silver ambassador for almost 2 years.
Wow. Pause for effect.
True story.
I also never, ever maintained a single rank until the rank of diamond. I have had.
Hold on. You can't just like scroll on past like that. You didn't just say what you just said.
I did just say that. Y'all, I had never hit and kept a single rank until diamond. Now we broke that finally, holding diamond 3 years strong. That's not actually what's important. John says if you tell him your success, then you can get a fan. But if you tell him your failures, you can get influence. And so what I'm here to tell you is before I held diamond, I didn't hold silver or gold or senior gold or ruby or senior ruby or emerald. All them. Anybody been there? I spent years. Matter of fact, this will blow you away. That's off script. More time not holding rank to this day than I have spent time holding rank. So I know the friend of shame. I'm very well acquainted with the feeling and the friend that is shame. Oh, I see some of you crying already. It's okay. Look, I'm here. It's fine. It worked out. Worked out for me. It can work out for you.
True story. Okay, and I understand what it feels like to wonder if I'm leading well. I remember when I got my very first business builder, I assumed that it was a fluke, that it was just luck, had no idea how I did that, definitely did not believe I would be able to do it again. And even when I did finally figure out that I could do it again and again and again, and it wasn't a fluke, then I was like, oh my gosh, all these people think I'm a leader. Like they think I know something I don't. They're expecting me to like help them be successful, and I really don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. I told you my friend Shame and we're good buddies. I also have met the friend of comparison. Anybody? I had friends that joined the same time I did with Brittany, and they were ranking up faster than I was, but I was like right on their heels trying my best, except for I looked and realized I was ranking up because I was playing the game of how many people can I just recruit myself? What can I do? And they were creating business builders. So I'm like, well, crap, what is wrong with me? Why can't I create it? No one wants to do this with me. People want to do it with her. I'm the common denominator. So then I played with the friend of comparison. I also wasn't a fast starter. Y'all, I tried to quit. 3.5 weeks in, I'm like, listen, I know that you have hounded me for a year because you thought I would be great, but this might be the only time in your life you've ever been wrong. But I'm telling you, I suck at this. I can't do this. Can we just move on? And she's like, you're not quitting. That would be dumb. Don't quit. But it took me almost a month to get my very first person to join me. And I also became very aware of the fact that I had a very self-focus. I have always been an achiever by nature, and so it's always just been, what can I achieve? Except for I realized I can't achieve my way to the top here. I'm going to have to learn how to love and care for and serve people.
Yeah, anybody familiar with fear? Anybody ever felt that emotion? As an Enneagram 6, it's my constant companion. Fear of what people think. Fear of, oh my gosh, I am in momentum and this is all moving really fast, but what if it stops? And if it does stop, how do I get it going again? What if it all falls apart? Fear has been my companion along every step of this journey. Also, insecurity. Do I have what it takes to make it to the top, make an impact, have influence, get people to join me, get people to work this business with me? Lisa lives in the same town I do. Why would someone want to work with me instead of her? I mean, she seems to have her life together way more than I do. So fear and insecurity definitely have been a familiar thing for me.
Yeah, what about public failure? Anybody afraid of what that looks like? One time, I announced to our team, actually she announced it, that we had hit I call her, I'm like, we hit it, we're Senior Ruby. She's like, awesome, I got the graph ready. And then we woke up on the first of the month, 6 points shy. I know, it's so embarrassing, right? Y'all, it wasn't just embarrassing that some of y'all saw it, my team saw it. So then I had to be like, oh, that was a dress rehearsal. We're not actually Senior Ruby, which then, of course, it took a couple of months to finally achieve it, but we got there. But I say that to say we've all had those public failures that some people decide this is the evidence that I can't do this. And you guys, I literally remember thinking, what do you mean I can't do this? Look how far we got. Like, look how close we were. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Anybody ever felt stuck? Raise your hand if you have ever felt stuck. Well, I shared with you that I was silver for almost 2 years, but I was also emerald for 2 solid years and sapphire for 2 years. As a matter of fact, I earned the Hawaii trip 3 times without anyone on my team earning it with me. And I remember that 3rd year being there, and that is when comparison was full force for me, because I'm looking around at all these jewels who have jewels there with them, and they're taking team pics in Hawaii, and they look so glamorous and so leaderly. And I'm just like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I have achieved a certain level of success. Why can't I help others get to where I am at? I need to figure this out. So I understand what it's like to feel stuck. I understand what it's like to look to the left or the right and compare yourself. A lot of my sidelines who joined the same time as me that if you were in this room a minute ago, you saw them all, how amazing they are, on this stage in a row, all ranking up before I did, even though we joined at the same time. I understand what that feels like to get past.
Yeah. So I hit emerald, and all of my friends decided to come to that party. My friends of shame and public failure and comparison, because you see, I hit emerald and then did not hit it again for almost an entire year. Had the Emerald Extravaganza trip threatening to choke me out. Anybody can relate? Like, if I don't earn this trip again, everyone will know. And then they might think all of these things about my worth or value. So hitting emerald, I achieved it, but in achieving it, realized, dang, it wasn't actually the rank I was after. It was the lifestyle that I knew that rank could afford my family. And that's when I realized in order to keep it, I was gonna have to grow. I was gonna have to get right over myself and just be willing to grow.
Yeah, so what we're trying to tell you today, before we jump into what you need to do to create Business Builders, we just wanted you to know we have felt all the things that you have felt. And so what you're feeling right now, or what you're going through right now, it's not an indicator of where you're headed. It's only an indicator of where you're starting. But you just heard her say, we were not fast starters, but I would say we are strong finishers. And
All right. So now we're going to kind of dissect it and talk about the strengths of these amazing communicators. Here, sorry. Yeah, there's no video. It is just audio. Unfortunately, they did not put video in the app. That would have been really great. Maybe next year.
Actually, it loads much faster. It loads much faster with no video.
Yeah.
The app is already data heavy, and I'm very glad they only put audio.
There's our tech side of things. Thank you, Madam Tech. Love it. So what did the communicators do to connect? What was the first thing that they did to create connection in the room?
Chelsea?
So like who's ever felt like this? Who's ever, struggled with this and not known how to do this? And so then they basically were like, they let you feel like they were talking to you and they
So,
grabbed your attention.
so what did they ask people to do who had, who were, yeah. So what was the action?
Stand up
They asked
or
everyone
put up
to
your
stand
hand.
up. So how do you think that it felt in that room? I don't know, Chelsea, were you at that
Yeah,
session?
I was there. Yeah,
So when they asked everyone to stand, and by the end of those questions, everyone was standing, did you feel like you were alone?
No, I don't think I've ever necessarily felt alone, but it's always really embarrassing to admit it.
Mm-hmm. And then they kept going further and deeper. And they used some humor too, right? They said the only two people not standing in the room were their husbands. And so they laughed, right? Humor is disarming. And we know that if people are laughing, they're learning.
They spoke to people's fears as well, and help people connect on that emotional level, that feeling level.
They took their position, because if you noticed up there, it did not just say diamond, or did not just say their name, it said Star Diamond Ambassador. So these are leaders of leaders. These are multipliers in our company who are ultra successful. And they gave, for instances, they took their position. This is who I am. And I have fear. And this is what this is my for instance of fear. Can anyone relate to that? It wasn't just, and has anyone ever been afraid? It was, here is the skin on example of fear for me. I think for me, the big thing that stood out to me was their message was, you are not alone. You're special, but you're not an enigma. You are not alone in how you are feeling.
And it also, because of that, it gave hope, because it felt like if you struggled with this the same way I'm struggling with this, I'm not a lost cause. And you somehow overcame this, and somehow I will overcome this. So I'm not going to give up saying, oh, I just can't do this. Or I just can't seem to figure this out. I guess I should just quit or something. It's like, no, like pull up your bootstraps, figure out a way, find a solution, because it exists and it's there. And it's not just for Brittany Howard or Christina Williams. They made it very clear that everybody struggles with this and they overcome it somehow. And the people who do overcome it are the people who believe that they can and will.
I like that she actually pointed out that there were already people crying right at the beginning. Because that to me says that they were in the room. They were connected so well at the beginning with people's heartstrings. They connected with those personal things that were not expensive, but do you know what I mean? Like that, those things that were really important to people, that they had that interconnectedness right at the beginning, and people were just ready.
So I'm interested to hear from those of you who had not heard it before. What connection were you feeling, or were you feeling a connection from simply the audio? Yes, Sharon.
There was connection, but probably not nearly as much as there would have been live to have actually been in that audience. But it's even then the only reason that there was some connection, to be honest, is because I've got some idea who Brittany Howard and Christina Williams are, right? If I had zero idea who they are, right, I'd be like, okay, those are nice words, you know, but what are you talking about? Right? So context and having, I mean, relationship is it's a strange word, but however distant, many thousands of people removed relationship that would be, I do have some context for who these people are, right? And I've been with Plexus long enough that, like Brittany Howard, especially, I can kind of remember watching her when she would have been Emerald or Sapphire, for sure, right? So there were some credibility. Yeah, that's a good word, Janelle, to her words. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you, and just correct me, Sharon, because I just want to clarify. So you were not feeling connection without the credibility of who that person was, like that, the setup of knowing who they were.
Personally, yeah. Yeah, and I can't speak for everybody, but that's like personally, you know, for me, I feel connection because it's in the context of Plexus, right? I wouldn't, if it wasn't for Plexus, I don't know that I would feel that connection. I'd say, oh, okay, that's a good talk. It's motivational, right? But I don't understand the context.
Right. Okay.
Right. But as it is, I understand the context. So there is credibility and connection.
Amy?
Yeah. It wasn't until they were talking about their experience and their pain of being at those ranks and not maintaining them. And those sorts of things, the pain, the failures, the authenticity of those emotions, that I started feeling connected. It started like nice motivational. If you're in the room, you've got a different feel because you're physically standing and you're physically seeing that. But it was actually those connecting points of pain and those pieces that made it the next step. If I was brand new and only had ever recruited one person, I don't know that I would have connected at that point either.
Okay. I really appreciate that. For me in the room, and I'm sure Chelsea and Janelle felt the same, they connected with me the minute they said, we're aware of your schedule. We're the last person. They knew what was going on for us that day. Like that was an instant connection. So we then stayed connected. So I really appreciate those comments and the realization that for a brand new person and they spent 10 minutes. We listened to almost 11 minutes of it. It was all connecting before they got to the information that they were providing. And for a brand new person, there would have been zero connection because none of the pain points they brought were for that person. That really helps me thinking about how I'm talking to my audience.
So we'd encourage you this week, as you are exposed to podcasts and, you know, audiobooks, all of those things, to ask yourself, like, to kind of do a little bit of an audit or even look at some large accounts, right? How are people connecting? Like, what is that connection tool? What can I learn from this? And again, this is just simply an audit to make tweaks to what you're doing, because we are always learning. We are always changing, right? Or, I mean, you can stay stuck if you want to, but I don't feel like you'd be a book club if you wanted to stay stuck. So I'm just making an assumption. We will always learn and have to go all over again, right? Just like that list said. When we learn to do better, then we level up to something different. And then we learn something else, and then we level up to something different. So now let this open your eyes a little bit more and let it be a catalyst to teach you how to become a better communicator. All right. Have a great week, guys. Thanks for joining us today. And we will see you for chapters 3 and 4 next Saturday. Bye.